Hello, welcome to Should I Buy This Game, featuring Dorf Romantik The Duel. My name is Christina, and in this video I'll give you a brief description on how the game is played, and then share a few things I may like or dislike about the game to help you decide if you want to add Dorf Romantik The Duel to your collection. Here we have Dorf Romantik The Duel. And this game is very similar to the original game Dorf Romantik, but this game is you go head to head with another player. Now, I've wanted to play Dorf Romantik, the main game, for a while until I found out it was cooperative. And I don't really like cooperative games because I do not like people messing up my game. So when I heard the Duel was coming out, I knew I would wait and get it, and I made the right choice. So in this game, there are two sets of identical pieces. It's red versus blue. And what happens is one player will have all their pieces upside down, whereas the other player will have them upright. And one player will randomly pick a piece, and the other player matches the piece that they pick. And you start with the task pieces, because you always have to have 3 tasks going on at one point. So for example, this task here I have mine down here, and I had it with a task of 3. So once I built up 1, 2, 3 pieces, my task was complete and I could remove it. Since I removed it, then I could continue to do more. So probably here I had another task. This time it was of 5. So I had 1, 2, 3, 4. I was able to add one more piece and then complete that task. However, you cannot put a task of 3 down if you have more than 3 pieces already. It has to be the exact number. But once you remove it, you're welcome to continue working on it. Another example was up here with this task. I had it and it was a task of 4, and this is the wraparound one. So by completing it, I had 1, 2, 3, 4 tiles, and therefore I completed that task. A few tasks I never completed is up here. I had a wraparound of 6, and I only managed to get 3 complete. Over here I needed 6 grain, and I got up to 4. And over here I needed 5 grain, and I got up to 3. Now, one thing you can do though is, for example, here there was a large amount. If I had gotten the 5 or 6 earlier, I could add it to this before closing it off. But now that it's closed off and greater than 6, I wasn't able to do that. So that's one thing you want to keep in mind, is where are places that I can easily just add my pieces to. So basically, you need 3 tasks on your board at all time. Once somebody completes a task, you add a new task into the game, and otherwise you pull the landscape. And they're the ones with the windmill that gives you just the grain or the houses or the forests, the trains and rivers. And you're just adding it to the board, trying to complete your tasks. And you play until all your landscape tiles have been depleted. There are also 2 modules that come with the game. And so this first one is some little bonus cards. So the large forest, this is once you place 5 or more tiles of either the forest or a grain or the village, the first person will get 8 points, and then the next person will get 4. And then this is a 2-player, but if you have 2 of these, you can play it against 4 people, and then it would be 2 and 0. This next one is at the end of the game, you compare how many forests you have that are at least 2 tiles, and whoever has the most forest would get 8, and then 4, then 2, and 0 again. And then this one is you count up how many forests you have that are at least 2 tiles, and then depending how many you have, you would get bonus points. And you would have one of each of these each of these cards. So say like many forests could be it, and then you would say choose the village master and then the large forest. So you would have one challenge for each of the different types. And then you can switch it up. And that is module 1. Module 2 works with the tasks. You have this little board, and each time you complete a task, you put it down on your board, and when you get to 4, 7, and 10, then you get a bonus. So I'm going to tell you about the bonuses. So the first one is the photographer. And what you do is you get your matching tile. So I have my red tile here, and that's where my photographer started his journey. And every time you place a tile that connects to it, you can drop a little camera, and that means you stop there for a photograph. And then you just keep moving your photographer along the way, dropping photographs. And then at the end of the game, you see how many photographs you have on the board. Now there's a little supply of these that are used by both players. And once these are all used up, there are no more. So if your competitor has used a lot of these, you may be left with only a few. So you want to get your photographer out early so you can start moving him around the board. The next one is hearts. And what this is you choose a landscape tile to put it on. So for example, this tile. And then each side that matches, you would get a point. So in this particular case, this tile would receive 6 points because each side matches up. But if I was to put it here, then we'd only get 1, 2, 3, 4 points because these do not match and this does not match because that's a grassy area there. So you want to get these earlier too. The first player to choose the hearts gets 3 hearts and the second player gets 2 hearts. If you choose hearts at the exact same turn, then you both get 3 hearts. But you want to be able to put it on a tile where it would match up. So this one I would get 1, 2, 3 points because these two do not match up. And you cannot put it on a task tile. I could not put it on one that comes out like this. They go on landscape tiles. And then the third one is actually 3 different choices. You've got the old oak for your forests, the granary for your grain, and the school for your villages. And so in this game, I chose the one for the grain, and I put it here. And so you get 1 point for every 2 tiles. So here I would get a point because it was grain. And then it was 1 and 2, I could get a point. I got a point for this one, and this one, and then all the way to that one. So as long as there's grain on it, even if the grain isn't touching the grain or if it was turned around backwards, as long as it's on the tile, you get a point. And the same is true for the forest and the villages. You would just choose the other tile. And you can only have 1 of these. So for the 3, you would get a photographer, hearts, and then 1 of these of your choice. And those are the components of Module 2. Overall, we really like this game. It's a medium weight game and takes about an hour to play. Now, we've played this game about 5 times. So the first time we played it, just the game. The second time we played with Module 1, the third time with Module 2, and then the 4th time we played, we changed it up. And so instead of everybody using the same task numbers, what we do, it's nowhere in the rules, this is just a personal thing, is we both pick task numbers to make our games just slightly different. And we really enjoy that. And it just gives both of us, we're not like necessarily copying each other's game or that. It's just giving us each a few different things to work on. And we also find because of that, sometimes we go through a lot more tasks, which therefore will give us more points. So in our 5th time playing, we played that way again. And that seems to be the way that we personally like to play. Now, another thing we like about this game is that you have so much going on. So of course, you start with, you have your tasks. Then you have flags. And the flags are trying to have areas that are all completed. Like so over here in my houses, you can see the house areas complete. My forest over here, it's no longer like moving out somewhere else. So for example, what would be incomplete would be, say, if I had a flag here, there's still an opening for another grain, so that's incomplete. So if you had a flag here, you would not score. So you're doing your flags, you're doing your tasks, you're also trying to get long railway trains and long rivers, because you get a point for each of the rivers. So there's a lot to be doing. And then what I also like to do when I play is even if I don't have that task ready, I'll start preparing areas with, say, 2 or 3, depending on which tasks I know will be coming up. So when I do get a task, I can just drop in the piece and complete it right away. So there's a lot to think about as you're placing tiles and working through it. And then we really like Module 2. We decided we aren't playing with Module 1, and we like Module 2 because it gives you the photographer to work on. It gives you the hearts so you can get bonus points. And then as well as adding the tiles based on what you might have a lot of in your game. And this game has like unlimited replayability because you're pulling tiles randomly. You don't know what you're going to get. And then the randomness of the tasks, you're always going to be playing a different game. So overall, we really enjoyed this game. And as I said, we've already played it 5 times in less than a week and enjoyed each time we played. Now, the first thing that sort of bothered us about the game was, as I mentioned, doing the exact same game. So I already mentioned this, but just to show you. So what we do is we both have our own little stack of tiles randomly mixed up. And instead of doing the exact same task number, we'll just randomly pick the top one from our pile and do that task number instead. And a lot of times too, if we end up doing all 4, we end up with the same points. And overall, I don't think there's much, it doesn't give one person an advantage or disadvantage in terms of points in the game, but it's just a personal thing. And it's not a rule. As I mentioned, this is just what we personally decided to do, and I thought I'd share with you. Now, the next thing is that it does take up a lot of space. And a lot of times, even though we start on opposite sides of the table, Mark and I will eventually run into each other and have to sort of turn our tile or whatever. And so it does take a lot of space. And if you have 2 of these games and playing with 4 people, I don't know what size table you're playing on, but 2 people is enough. And we don't have necessarily a small table, but we still run into each other. So that's one thing to keep in mind. And the last thing is that, as I mentioned, one person is picking the tiles and the other person has to match the tiles. And as good as you think you're doing, there will come a point where the person who's picking the tile will pick one and you'll be like, I already played that tile. Because there's a lot of similarities between some of the tiles and you're bound to end up playing the wrong tile at some point. And we just keep moving forward. It is what it is. But we've both been the pickers and we've both been the matchers and we've both made mistakes. So that's another thing is at some point you're bound to have picked the wrong tile or matched the wrong tile. But these are just small things. Overall, we really enjoyed the game and we've just made accommodations to how we like to play the game. So let me know in the comments if you've played Dorf Romantik The Duel or even just the original cooperative game and what you think of the game. And I also want to give a shout out to the box design. You got red, you got blue, it just all fits in. There's no plastic bags. This is for the modules. You have the individual tasks for each person. Then our cards sit right in there. Our little player board sit here. And then finally our score pad sits right there. The lid goes on and there's no extra plastic bags to be seen. So and nowadays, whenever I get a nice box design, I just have to call it out.